How much do we need to write in order to make an impact, to have a lasting legacy? Conventional wisdom would say a lot, but we are artists. We don't care about conventional wisdom. And certainly the life and work of Arthur Rimbaud proves this point, namely that you don't need to write a lot, you need to write fearlessly, and you need to be fierce when it comes to your art. In this little discussion, I hope to give you some guidelines that helped me grow as an artist, as a writer, that I gleaned from the work and life of Arthur Rimbaud. Now, if you don't know who Arthur Rimbaud is, he's little known, I'm joking. He's one of the great French poets and arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest modern poet that we had so far. And he lived a short life. I think he was almost 39 when he died. And he wrote between the ages of 16 and 20. I have here with me his entire poetical work. And beyond that, we only have some letters. That's everything he wrote. And all of this in 4 years when he was basically a teenager. Now, we would be inclined to say, oh, he was a genius. He was gifted by God, the universe, the muses. But that's bullshit if you ask me. Now, he was a very deep reader. He lived with a very strict mother. His father was absent for most of his life. His parents were divorced. And he lived in a little provincial town where the only thing that he was allowed to do mostly was either to play the piano or to study. And his first major breakthrough was a poem that I think is translated in English as The Gift of the Orphans. I don't know, I only read him in Romanian. 2 translations, but both in Romanian. And he sent it to another great symbolist poet, Paul Verlaine, with whom he had a very intense love affair. They ended up maiming and shooting each other, but we'll save those lurid details for another video. If you want to hear me talk about Arthur Rimbaud, please let me know in the comments. But today I'll only talk about his impact on my work. And I read him when I was a teenager myself, and only later would I discover his influence on another one of my favorite poets, Bob Dylan. But I was very surprised by the punk rock lifestyle that he lived, and how he ran away from home after emailing Verlaine one of his poems, and Verlaine replies saying, "Oh, we are waiting for you in Paris," and he also sent him some money for the journey. And the thing with Rimbaud, he had a poetic vision, and he tried to fulfill it. Wanted to derange his senses and achieve a new poetical vision, which he did. Because if you read his poems, and mind you, these were written in the 1860s or 1870s, somewhere around that time period. And he anticipates everything that came after him: surrealism, modernism. A lot of punk rock acts took inspiration from his work. And as I said, we are tempted to say that he was a genius, but he was a devout reader. He also had been writing for a very long time, and he was competing in poetry contests in Latin, mind you. That's how it was back in the day. You had to study Latin, and I think some of them are included in this volume. And those were basically homework. But once he liberated himself from that and was part of the bohemian scene in Paris, he unlocked something that was truly special. And the first lesson is that you have to be in a network of some sort. You have to be not part of a movement, but part of a scene. And the best thing is nowadays you can do it online as I'm doing it. You don't have to go physically to places. And probably if you're watching this in some provincial town, probably don't have a literary scene. Or maybe you have one in your locality and you don't care for it. That's all right. Your people are out there, and it's best you find them. And for me, that took a very long time to learn. I think it took me almost a decade, if not more, definitely around a decade. And I found my people online. I found them on Substack. I write uh, Nether Street Blues for those of you who stumbled upon me on YouTube. Check out the link in the description. And this is very important. Find your vision. And when I say find, I don't mean create, try to think about it, trying to intellectualize it. No, look at what you are doing in your art that resonates deeply within you and what also resonates with your reader. Don't look for something that connects with the reader. Look at the things in your work that makes you feel most connected with your audience. And your audience here, it's virtually limitless. Rimbaud, when he was done with poetry in his 20s, he wasn't a big name. That came after when Paul Verlaine, an older Paul Verlaine, was writing essays about the damned poets, and he had an essay that it's basically now an introduction to all of the to both volumes of Rimbaud that I've read. And this comes into my next point, and namely, you shouldn't care. Don't care. And it's easier said than done. It's very easy nowadays when, like we have metrics and, everybody wants to be a big hit. But don't think about that. Think about the work. Think about poetry. Think about literature. And here I'm going to quote Frank Zappa, which when he was talking about rock and roll, he said, a lot of rockers or a lot of rock stars, they don't care that much about music. They care about being rock stars. They want the women, they want the parties, they want the glamorous lifestyle, but they don't care that much about making music, about making art. And that's something that Rimbaud clearly emulated, or not emulated, clearly proved by his life. At 20, he said, I'm done, and he went and became an arms dealer. He was done with poetry. And after writing one of the greatest works of literature, the Illuminations, which were some amazing prose poems. And in them, you can already see surrealism taking place close to or almost half a decade before surrealism was a thing. That's amazing. And that's something that I always have to remind myself when I'm writing. Don't have to pander to an audience, because the audience that you like wouldn't want to be pandered to. Movements, literary cliques, they exist and they are enforced by the people that need them, by the artists that need them. Artists who honestly aren't that good. It's not cool to say nowadays. Nowadays, everybody is positive when it comes to art, and it's beautiful to create. But if you want to make an impact, you have to chase your vision to its utmost extreme. And that comes with a lot of sacrifice. It doesn't have to be tragic, but there are costs. And definitely, Rimbaud suffered for his art. He ran away from home. He was living destitute in Paris as a young man. Say poems. He went through a lot of hardship. As I said, he was shot by his lover. And I think he also lunged at him with a knife. You don't need that. You honestly don't need that. But you need to give up certain things. You need to give up some comforts. And those comforts can be very mundane. You might have to cancel out on some plans with some friends, or don't make plans with certain friends. You might have to give up other hobbies. But, if you are about literature, it's worth it. This is something that I'm right now telling to myself because, yeah, when I started writing on Substack once a week, and now it's like I need to publish once a week. It's become a need, an obsession. I miss video games. Right behind me, I have my PS5, which has been gathering dust for the past couple of years, but I don't regret it. I miss it, but I don't regret it. And that's something that you should keep in mind. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to look at things that are ignored. Rimbaud's poetry was one of the first to deal with the working class, with sex workers, with drugs and alcohol consumption, substance abuse. Those were things that were overlooked, that were not considered material for poetry in his day. Nowadays, it's almost the other way around, or it's definitely the other way around. We have rap lyrics that talk about drugs and the hedonistic lifestyle. So, write, make art about those things that are getting ignored and you notice them. And in any case, don't be afraid to look inside yourself, derange your senses, Try to look at something that you find weird, that other people find weird, and look at it deeply. And try to write something about it. You'll be amazed at what comes out. In any case, this was fun, and wishing you much love, and keep on writing literature that lingers.